4 years, 1 month, and 16 days later, Euphoria Season 3 is back against everybody's wishes. The critics, the cast, the fans. In fact, the only person that seemed to still want this was Sam Levinson himself. Creator, writer, director. God, is there anything he can do? I wasn't planning on watching it because honestly, I did not think it was going to come out. And by all accounts, it hasn't. At least from the first episode of the season, this doesn't feel like Euphoria in the slightest. It's more of a Western. A bad Western. For those totally in the dark, Euphoria is that show about teenagers acting like adults with the worst habits. A lot of drugs, violence, and nudity, but the show is mainly known for how it sexualizes its teenage characters. Supporters of the show have stated the story offers a realistic look into the lives of certain teenagers in high schools. After all, this is heavily inspired by Sam Levinson's own experiences. So why is the main character Zendaya and not a white guy? Well, silly. Euphoria is also an American remake of the Israeli series of the same name. So that explains why the show feels so gross. I also realized that Sam Levinson is like the king of hijacking projects. He hijacked and ruined The Idol after it was almost entirely complete. And then he goes and remakes an Israeli TV show. A show that, mind you, was also heavily criticized in Israel. Think about it. This show was so goddamn exploitative that even the Israelis said, nah, that's too much. Wow. But he also based the entire style of the show on the photographs of Petra Collins. Petra Collins is a Canadian artist and director of photography, and Sam Levinson contacted her agency saying that he had created a show based entirely on her style of photography and wanted her to direct the show. So she moved to LA and worked with HBO for 5 months, crafting the aesthetics, the visuals, the aura. And then they said, actually, we're not going to hire you because you're just a little too young. Sorry. So she went home disappointed because her work was no longer going to be used. Except she was wrong. They did use her style. The show's whole aesthetics and style that people actually liked was all from Petra Collins. A trend. It seems like the positive aspects of his work seem to somehow always originate from women. Is anyone surprised? There's a time jump between seasons 2 and 3, so everyone is an adult now. Everyone is of age. They're all in their early to mid-20s. No longer in school, no longer in each other's lives. It's almost like there was no point in doing this anymore. And some of the actors really didn't want to be there. I'm talking specifically about Jacob Elordi and Sydney Sweeney. Wow. Talk about phoning it in. They were either forcing themselves to get through a really bad situation, having to come back to Euphoria after finding success elsewhere, Jacob Elordi as an Oscar-nominated actor and Sydney Sweeney as MAGA Barbie, or they were just getting really horrible direction from whoever was directing the scenes, which is also very plausible and possible. Zendaya is rumored to not have wanted to come back to Euphoria at all, but she still delivers a knockout performance because she's a professional. She's there to do her fucking job. And everyone else in the cast seems to be delivering performances on par with what they were doing before. Again, except for Jacob and Sydney. They just did not want to be there at all. We could also blame the writing because the writing this season feels aimless. And it's only 1 episode in. There's a lot more to see, but it felt kind of random. Because of the time jump, most of the characters now feel like a caricature of what their adult versions would be. Like everything is a cliche. And though we're only 1 episode in, I'd argue that they haven't really made a compelling case for non-fans of the show to stick around. Which is a shame because the cinematography of the show is really good. Like I really like Sam's style. I really like how his projects look. Say what you will about him, but the fact that he shot this entirely on film shows that at least he cares about how the projects look like, and they look great, every single one of them. I love the color grading, how rich all of the colors are, how the spaces feel like an actual space. I think he always films on location, which again adds a lot more realism and transports you there a lot better than all these fucking digital films and series that look like shit. To me, Sam's work looks great. It's just the contents of it that need work, like a lot of fucking work. I wouldn't say the story ran out of steam because I think you need to have motion in the first place for that to happen. I think Euphoria works better as individual pieces of work, like the Oklahoma bathroom scene that has been shared as a clip thousands of times, or the episode where Rue goes on a rampage and snatches herself a second Emmy in the process, or Rue revealing Cassie's sleeping with Nate to Maddie, or Lexi's entire play. It's only when you put everything together and then you throw in copious amounts of nudity that just waters down the point that you're trying to make, if there was a point you were trying to make. Nevertheless, and seemingly against everybody's wishes, Euphoria did eventually come back, and so did I. So let's talk about the first episode right after you subscribe down below, because it helps and it's free, and damn, you look so good today. Season 3 is a whole new world of opportunities. We no longer have teenagers having copious amounts of sex and doing copious amounts of drugs. Now we have drug smuggling, dog fetish play, and beheading chickens. That last one I can't show. The shock value is still there, but it feels different this time. Almost like Sam is venturing outside of these high school walls for the first time, the walls that have contained the show thus far, and he doesn't know what to do with it. And in that spirit, the episode starts with Rue driving in Mexico, headed towards the border. And she crosses the border with her car. And the first 10 minutes are just her comically trying to get from Mexico to the United States. And I want to ask people who are familiar with the wall, is this what it looks like? And is this possible? I don't know if we're going for realism or absurdism, but Rue eventually makes her way into the United States without the car. And then she crashes in someone's barn in Texas. And then in the morning, the family is super welcoming to her. They're Christians, very isolated from the entire world. And they all seem happy. They don't have internet, and they seem happy. What the hell? And then we get into what actually happened. So Rue, 46 months after graduating high school, was working at an ice cream stand. And Lori, remember Lori from season 2? For those of you who don't know, Lori was this drug dealer who gave her $10,000 worth of pills for her to sell. Then Rue's mom found the pills, flushed them all down the toilet. Then Rue was kind of kidnapped by Lori, and she escaped in the middle of the night from the window. And then she was back in high school, and she was seemingly sober, and that's how it ended. So 46 months after that, Lori finds her and tells her that she owes her a lot of money. It used to be $10,000 back in the day, but now, after 46 months of interest, she owes her $43 million. But she'll settle for 100 grand. And that's how Rue became a drug mule. We get a smuggling tutorial showing us how fentanyl gets into the United States, if you've ever wondered. I haven't. I've genuinely never sat around the house wondering how drugs get smuggled illegally across borders. It's just never something that has kept me awake because I don't give a fuck. They roll up the merch, the product, in these wrapped up balls. Then you drop it in water to make sure there's no leaks. And then you lube it up and swallow it. And you pray none of the dozens of baggies you've just swallowed rupture inside of you, or you'll die. And I suspect we only get this in-depth tutorial so we can have this long sequence of Rue and Faye, her backup help, shoving their fingers in their mouth and gagging. Because he'll always find a way to get women on screen gagging with tears in their eyes. Let me not. It just felt unnecessarily. I think we get the point. And that has been Rue's life since. She's sort of a pet of this family. I say pet because they always celebrate when she doesn't get herself killed or arrested. It's like a miracle. She's also in touch with Lexi and crashes with her sometimes. But most importantly, she's seemingly sober. And she continues having meetings with Allie, her sponsor. And she mentions to Allie how in one of these smuggling trips, she ended up meeting this really cool family who were religious and seemingly happy. And she's considering turning to religion as like salvation for her unhappiness and terminal misery. And I used to think that the conversations between Rue and Allie were the more insightful, grounded moments of the show when you get to see human moments and the exploration of these topics and a nice break from all the teenagers fucking. But this conversation felt a bit phoned in, like most of the writing of the episode. They talk about the Bible and the gays, and it just goes nowhere, but it also starts nowhere. And then Rue decides to read the Bible from top to bottom and believe every single word. She's turning to God, which I don't have a problem with. I just wish this conversation had been a little bit more fleshed out. It feels like such a consequential thing to do for a junkie to suddenly turn to God while smuggling copious amounts of drugs from Mexico to the US, which in and of itself feels like a caricature of what you'd expect a junkie to be doing after high school. Rue then does a drop-off at this massive mansion up at the top of the hill, and they're having a party. She gets carried away dancing with a bunch of lovely-looking ladies, and then strikes up a conversation with a big boss daddy of the house. And she feels a real affinity for him and his whole philosophy of reinventing yourself in America. America. Which is all fun and games until one of the girls dies because the stuff Rue brought, probably a hit job that included Rue dying in the process. They confront her and she has her little tweaker moment, explains what Lori has been forcing her to do and how she felt like God brought them together. She's begging this man to hire her because she doesn't want to keep working for Lori. So to test her, they make her balance an apple on top of her head and let this big boss man shoot the apple. So she holds steady, he shoots the apple, and she laughs diabolically. A Western comedy about an American drug mule trying to branch out into other business ventures in the drug industry. And the mule is Rue, the high school junkie who I thought would OD before graduating. Good for her. And that's it for Rue for now. Zendaya is giving us everything she has. And I will say it's nice to see Rue having a little bit of fun even though her life is completely in the dumpster. Lexi, who wrote that fun play in season 2, now works in Hollywood on a nighttime soap. Maddie's also back, sort of. So far, we only hear that she is now working as a talent agent, a job that isn't as glamorous as it seems and pays really well if you're Maddie's boss. But you know what? She's a working woman. Against all odds, she actually presents character growth because the Maddie that I know would be a sugar baby right now. But the Maddie that we get to know now is a working woman, independent, doing it her way. Yes. And lastly, for episode 1, we have Nate and Cassie. This is so bad. Who are also a cliche. They live in a right-wing bubble, as Rue describes it, and they're engaged. After Nate's dad went to prison, he took over his construction business and realized the job is really tough. And Cassie became an even bigger parody of the walking stereotype she already was in seasons 1 and 2. But in a jarring way. She's become infantilized to the point I genuinely thought she was just dumb. Or like slow. Or maybe it's just the acting. Or maybe it's the directing. I don't know. Something feels off about Cassie. Her whole personality. Ugh. Before she was whiny and insecure and lived vicariously through male validation, and now she's just a brat. She's kind of a parody of herself in real life. See this corset? It came directly from Sydney Sweeney's new lingerie brand, Siren. The brand that got a $1 billion investment from one of the worst people on earth, Jeff Bezos. Yeah, one of the many multi-billionaires that we should absolutely drag to the town square. And God, Nate gets home after work and catches his fiance doing this. And Nate's reaction is quite bizarre, especially if you remember how he was in earlier seasons. This is the same man who nearly beat a guy to death and then got him thrown in prison after choking his girlfriend because she dressed like a in front of his family and called his mom a Okay, that was a lot. Yeah, I know. That was crazy. But he walks in and he says, how many times do we have to talk about this? If one of my investors comes across one of your videos, they might pull out. So, like, he doesn't even care that his girlfriend is doing this online. Which, again, hey, in a perfect world, women could do whatever they wanted, free from judgment from their partners or their friends or whoever. I'm not against that. I'm just really, really surprised at how much Nate has changed. So I guess there has been a little bit of character growth. Nah, because he still calls her a prostitute.
It's just a funny video.
Except you're not a doggy, you're a grown woman, so that makes you a what?
There's nothing going on behind her eyes.
A prostitute.
No, I am not a prostitute.
There's not a single thought happening in that little noggin of hers. But seeing Cassie in this situation really reminded me of when Maddie told her at the back end of season 2 how she was now gonna find out what it truly meant to be with Nate. And I guess this is it.
Come. Just sit.
Let him leave. Let them go. Free Nate and Cassie. Have them marry and then disappear. Imagine being forced back only to do this on camera. The irony is I think Sydney may have been super happy to do it because she got her brand on an HBO show. Huh? But the cliche goes further, and she mentions to this woman how she's thinking of doing OnlyFans, but not the typical adult content that you'd expect. She'd be posting the same pictures that she posts on Instagram right now. And when the woman asks why anyone would pay for that, she says that there's a lot of men out there with a lot of money who will pay a lot of money just to receive good morning texts from a beautiful woman like her. And I'll give it to her. She has a point. Like that, yeah, she could be making a lot of bank looking like that. But I also can't help but feel like this trivializes OnlyFans and sex work that people dedicate their lives to doing, despite the many challenges and obstacles and, how society perceives them. But that's his style. He trivializes sex work, he trivializes sex, he trivializes any sort of violence associated to that sex. Because to him, everything's the same. He's an equal opportunist offender. He doesn't care. So Nate and Cassie are engaged now, and Cassie is a huge brat, like spoiled child who wants to have a lavish big wedding. Problem is, Nate has been dealing with this project at work and hasn't secured investment for part 2 yet, so he needs to be sensible with their spending. But Cassie wants floral arrangements at her wedding, worth $50,000. What the fuck? So they discuss this over dinner, and it's really bad. The acting has once again been phoned in, but the content as well. Nate says it's ridiculous to spend 50 grand on flowers that will be dead the day after. And I personally agree. I think that if you can spend $50,000 on flowers for your wedding, you have money to change the world. Because what do you mean? 50,000? It feels very frivolous and irresponsible, like wildly irresponsible to be spending $50,000 on flowers. Why am I even analyzing this to so much depth? It doesn't matter. He explains that money isn't necessarily abundant right now, and he would be fine spending 2 grand, 5 even, but 50 is just excessive and unnecessary. She suggests paying for the flowers herself, saying that she will do OnlyFans. And Nate, in a very condescending way, says, "You want to do porn for floral arrangements?" And she says, "If I have to, yes." And I will say straight away, Rue said they live in a right-wing bubble. I don't think that in a right-wing bubble, the woman can just announce she's doing sex work. But I'm also not up to date with how right-wing circles are right now. Anyone in a right-wing circle, are women allowed to talk yet? And again, it's trivializing sex work and OnlyFans. It's making this like such a non-thing. Like, yeah, if I need money, I'll just hop on OnlyFans for a couple months, make a couple million, and then ta-da, that's it. And that is how you can tell that this was written by a man. Specifically, Sam. Nate then says absolutely not on her doing porn to pay for the flowers. And she says, and I kid you not, "Well, then we have a big problem because I didn't wait my entire life to have a ghetto wedding." Girl, what? I want to know who Sam is talking to write these things. And she talks about how on her big day, she just wants to have all her friends there, her family there, and $50,000 worth of flowers. And both of them are delivering these lines with the conviction of a wooden door. I really want to know what happened behind the scenes for them to just do this. And I know I've been dunking on their performance this entire time. Listen, it's probably not even their fault. It's probably the director's fault. I personally think that both Jacob and Sydney are good actors. Like, objectively speaking, I think they are both good sometimes. For some reason, both Nate and Cassie don't feel like the future version of the same characters they were playing. It's almost like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like there's been growth. It feels like they've been replaced by an even more stereotypical version of what they represented in the first place. But that said, it's a bit of a departure from the original style, and it almost feels campy. It feels less serious and more camp. It also feels less exploitative. Less, not completely gone. I have seen the critical reception of season 3 has gone down compared to seasons 1 and 2, but I'm gonna disagree. I think it works better. Given what Sam's style actually is and what he loves to shove into his stories, I think that moving the setting away from high school and into the real world as adults works wonders, because then it's not as weird. But it also seems like he doesn't know what to do yet. Or maybe he does in further episodes. I don't know. That is it for episode 1, guys. What did you think? I want to know what people are saying, because I see some people are like living for it and enjoying it, and a lot of people are absolutely hating it. And I'm kind of on the fence in the sense that it's still garbage and it goes nowhere and it's completely pointless. But there are certain elements that, again, in a vacuum are really funny. Nate and Cassie's conversation, as bad as the acting was, it just added to the campness of it all. The amount of candles in that room, it's so, like, you go into it thinking, oh, this looks like The Idol. But then with the dialogues being so ridiculous and funny, it's like a parody. It's like yeah, I don't know. My God, did I enjoy this? No. See, I caught myself at certain times just staring at the screen like, what? But we'll just have to wait and see how the rest of the season plays out. And I want to ask you, the audience, which one would you prefer? a weekly review and recap of Euphoria as it comes out, or an end of season recap and final thoughts. And just to clarify, the weekly release would be bonus videos. It wouldn't take away from every other video that I'm working on right now. So let me know in the comments down below. But for today, that is it. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to leave it a like down below and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Follow me on my socials. They're all linked down below. And until next time, stay safe, stay sane, stay stupid, and stay stuttering. Bye, guys.